That's even better than it just be a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm here
All
for.
right, well, yeah, we're getting to it.
All right.
All right, yeah, once again for the great minds and now talking about. It's the 4th&10. Finally got Jeremy on the show. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Cool, man. Doing good, man. Um, we'll start with some easy question, and as you probably expected, to get a little more grittier, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right, what inspired you to start this league, and what was the original goal versus what it has become?
Yeah, great question. So, back in 2000, well, actually even earlier, so probably about 2001, 2002, I started playing kickball. When that first started getting big in the DMV area, loved it. It was basically we would play 45 minutes of an hour kickball as a means to get to the bar and really have fun, right? Then I started playing some softball. Then I started playing some dodgeball. Then I started playing flag football, and I realized there was only men's in Fairfax County. And some friends invited me to play co-ed. We played co-ed in DC and Deep, Maryland. We were driving an hour and a half weeknights to play, but there was no co-ed football in Fairfax County. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start it. And it was after a long uh, season, and we're in another league. We had a mishap in our championship game. wasn't happy about the result. So I said we can do this better. So that's kind of how Facebook, all this stuff started. So I said we can do it better. So started in 2006. Did all the research. Really had no idea what I was doing, putting this stuff together. We started '07 in April with co-ed football, softball, and soccer. We had maybe 20, 25 teams. And then fast forward to by the end of 2025, we'll probably have close to 6,500, 7,000 total teams between the three markets. So I had no idea what I was getting into, honestly, back in '07. I just wanted a close place to play flag football selfishly, but I thought it could be done better. 2009, a week before my wedding, I got laid off from my job. I came home to my wife and said, "Hey, I got laid off. I know we're getting married in a week." I said, "I can try to do this FXA thing full time. What do you think?" And she said, "I'll support any decision you make. If you think this can be good for our family, then I'll support you." And that's all I needed. So I went full in. Walked into my wedding and walked out of my wedding with no full time job.
Mm.
So got to work real quick and really put my hands into work and get this thing growing. So we started adding different sports, started making connections, and really growing the league. And as we were growing, it just so happened, got above the fields were being built in Fairfax County. So as we grew, we got fields. As we grew more, new fields would open and they would, allocate them to us. So it was really just the absolute perfect timing for us to start the league as these other fields were being built and returfed. So now we're at a point where, we're one of the largest leagues in the country, by far one of the largest leagues on the East Coast. I only say that because it's a lot. It's a lot of work. I mean, I'm glued to my cell phone, 18 hours a day. My wife's, she's come accustomed to it. My kids don't love it. I missed a lot when they were growing up, but now I'm kind of focusing and taking a step back from refing and that stuff to be with them. And then when they leave, I'll be back in it and people will be sick of me again. But, it's just that struggle of, keeping the integrity and keeping the initial efforts of FXA of we want to be the best adult sports league out there. So we want to have the best fields, the best refs, the best courts, the best website, the easiest registration system, all of that stuff, right? But we're kind of limited in some technology and with other issues. So it's it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but I would say that we're always trying to improve every single day. I know people don't believe that, but we're hopefully working on some stuff now that will make registration and all this stuff easier down the road, and just make it easier for the team captains and for the team players. So we're just always every day trying to get better.
Okay, okay. Who's that behind the scenes person or crew that doesn't get enough credit but keeps things moving smoothly?
Oh man, so we're a team of seven ops players. There's seven of us that take care of. 6,500, 7,000 teams. So, I mean, we got Pete who came on with me in 2013. Then it was Tyler. Then it was Kayla. And then we've had a couple of other new personnel coming to the mix. We have Taryn, Lindsay, and Molly. Every one of those have been rock stars. I mean, for sure. Our leadership team, myself, Pete, Kayla, and Tyler, we meet, every week. Formally, we meet off the books probably every day and just talk through things about different situations, what we can do better, how we can get better, how we can improve, all that kind of stuff. So my whole staff, I mean, it's not me, it's really them. I just kind of manage the process and try to find other fields, courts, refs, all that kind of stuff. But they really are the glue to FXA for sure.
Okay, okay. How do you measure success each season? Attendance, feedback, competition level, or something else?
For me, honestly, we started out FXA. Our tagline was the Elite Social Sports League. And that was something we developed in 2007. And it's kind of funny how things have changed over the past 18 years. Back in the day when we first started, you know, teams would compete to be the best of the best, to be the elite team. Now it seems like there's been a shift where, some of these top players just want to go out there and have fun with their friends. They don't really care so much if they win or if they play in the competitive elite division or if they win a ring. They just want to go out there and have fun and just be the best hour of their week, right? And we talked about that a lot in the office. How can we be the best hour of somebody's week? Or some people, a lot of players, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. I mean, there are several players that play 5, 6, 7 days a week with us. It's wild, and it's structured that way. They can play a different sport every day of the week, and we've kind of built it that way. And when I was in my early 20s, I would have been playing sports, man, 7 days a week, playing co-ed sports. I can meet people, and I mean, I would have been all in, all in. But there was nothing, back 20, 25, 30 years ago when I was growing up. So that's really kind of fueled me in my early 30s to kind of grow this. So.
Okay. What kind of reputation do you want the league to have among players and outsiders?
Yeah, great question. I mean, our reputation, I think it was the wild, wild west, I would say, when we were first starting. We didn't have formal policies, so to speak. So we weren't very consistent with certain things. And I think now, as a league overall, we've become very consistent as far as who we take into playoffs, how we move teams up, how we schedule teams, the fields that we get, the referees, kind of all that stuff being consistent. But we just want to be the best sports league that we can for our players. And it's not always easy. We're not perfect, but that's our goal every single day, is just to be the league that everybody wants to play in. So to measure success for me, to go back to your earlier question, it's really just player growth. I don't really care where players play or how many rings or whatever, just how many people can we get out there playing the sports that they love, meeting people, getting them off the couch, off the computer, off the phone, and getting out being social, right? Like COVID put a number on a bunch of people, a lot of us, right? And it took a while to recoup from that and get back into that social atmosphere and all that stuff. So sports is the universal language, right? It brings us all together. So we're just trying to just keep growing that, trying to get people out there and playing the sports they love.
Okay, okay. All right, let's get to it.
Yeah.
Some players feel like flag gets overlooked compared to some of the newer leagues or other sports. What's your response to that?
That's funny. So full disclosure, I started running flag football and I'm continuing to run flag football to this day, 17 years later. We're working to get that off of my plate so it's more focused and more highlighted and such. Not to say that I don't, because that's every day I wake up, I check that schedule, I check things. I mean, that's the first thing on my mind, but I got 200 other things, to keep FXA going and run the company. But flag footballs, and it's been my love since I was a little kid, playing pickup tackle football, at 12, 13, 14 years old in the backyard. That's where my love of football started. And I kind of wanted to bring that into our sport. So it's nothing other than it's probably just me being just crazy busy. And I need to kind of pawn that off. So our newer staff will eventually be taking that over, and they'll be seeing them more out there, and doing that. But like I said, we're not perfect. I'm not perfect by any means, but we try to get that schedule out there and get everybody playing as best we can. So the non-focus of football, I would pin on myself, honestly. It's just me just being busy, and I want to make it a focus now, with it being an Olympic sport, with it now being a high school girls flag football sport, in Fairfax County and the surrounding counties. I want to bring that focus back to football. Soccer's just crazy huge in this area, and it always will be, but I would love to bring football back to 200 plus teams this season.
Okay, okay. All right. How do you decide what new formats to bring in? And especially, what are your thoughts on the whole drop seven co-ed and bring back five?
Drop seven co-ed.
And bring five co-eds. A lot of people want five co-eds.
Yeah, so we offer, so great question. So I was always a big eights guy. I played, my first league was men's eights. Played it, loved it. And then I started playing flag football in the DC leagues. Loved co-ed as well. I just love football. That's always been my passion. So we started doing that, and then we saw the tournaments utilizing five man, and I said that's kind of cool. We can get three fields on one field. It brings a lot of players to the same area. Let's do that. So we started adopting five man, for the men's. We then started trying to introduce women's five man, to kind of have that little bit of separation. That never took off. We introduced co-ed five man. I think we got one or two seasons with a handful of teams, and then it just kind of fizzled. So we open everything. My staff sometimes tells me that we open up too much stuff, that we have too many leagues available. But to me, it's trying to start something, open it up, let's see what sticks, and then try to grow it from there, right? So the sevens decision really was just kind of the shift in football, going from a longer field to a shorter field, more possessions, more involvement of the female players, less contact at the line. There's a lot of factors in moving from eights to sevens. More people in the field at the same time, more of a community feel, a lot more excitement. So that's kind of why we moved to the co-ed eights. If players want five co-ed, I will absolutely bring it, for the wintertime. Funny enough, this winter we introduced the air it out format. And for those not familiar, one of the feedbacks from women's fives was that there's not a lot of good female quarterbacks, right? Not yet, at least, right? So the air it out style allows one male and four females to play in that five-man setting. So the male quarterback and then a male rusher. So it kind of opens it up. So the girls still get to play with their male quarterback. So I'm really hoping that takes off this winter and we can kind of grow that style. And then hopefully that can then kind of parlay and move into a women's fives, and then kind of grow that. So I really see, and I think the shift for flag football is going to be the short-sided versus the full field like eight man is now.
Okay. I like that. I like all that. What's one change that players asked for that actually surprised you how well it worked out?
The rule change in football. I mean, honestly, I think the biggest one was that double forward pass behind the line of scrimmage, for men's league. I'm not a big fan of it. It's not football. They don't play that in NFL. They don't do it in college. They don't do it in high school. They don't do it in Pee Wee football. Flag football is a different style game, but a lot of players that play high school, that play college, and the few that play NFL have a real tough time adjusting to that. And like I said, in my personal opinion, I feel that it's a huge advantage for the offense to have that double forward pass behind the line of scrimmage. But I know it's a states thing, so we implemented it, and I think that's really worked out. A lot of teams have adopted it, utilize it, and I think it's kind of a cool twist, so to speak, for flag football.
Okay. Okay. What's one thing you wish players understood about how the league operates day to day?
Man, just how important officials and referees are to this game. Um, Nobody at any level plays this sport, any sport, without officials, right? In the NFL, in high school, in college, in Pee Wee. it all lives and dies by the officials, right? So we're really kind of working to clean up referee abuse, how players react to referees, kind of all that stuff. Because it was an old school mentality. You could yell at a ref and they would yell back, and blah blah blah. Nowadays, the referees just don't want to deal with it. They just would rather walk away from the game than have to deal with that kind of craziness. So we want to have an environment that everybody enjoys, the players and the referees. So I would say it's a heavy reliability on those referees for sure.
Okay. Okay. All right, let's really get to it.
Yep.
You break down in simple terms, where do league fees actually go? Fields, refs, staff, insurance, everything. Because players see the fees going up, and as they say, is the biggest thing inside of Mississippi, but we don't see the obvious improvements. So can you break it down for us?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it goes to the fields, the referees, the website. I mean, sure, there's multiple different little pieces of the pie that all gets kind of divvied up, right? The champ shirts, all the prizes, the office. I mean, there's just so many things that are coming up that all that money kind of goes to. Over the years, we've seen leagues take different approaches to league fees, whether it be kind of like a gym format where you pay, 10, $20 a month, plus you got to pay fees on top of that. Different leagues have done different things, but for me and for us, I'm trying to keep these league fees as low as absolute possible. Anytime that we do an increase, it's typically because of the field increases or referee pay goes up. That's really the main, or we have other extravagant increases, like the shirts went up over the years recently and other little things. But for the most part, we're trying to keep all of these fees as low as possible. And my staff sometimes always gets on me about us not raising the prices in certain things because of X factors. But like I said before, in my mind, I want people to get out there. I want them to get out playing the sports that they love, and I want them to be able to play that at an affordable price, right? So, I mean, I look at these crazy concert tickets, the price to watch a football game now, to go to FedEx Field or to go to a Nats game. Man, things are getting out of control, right? So I'm trying to keep our prices as low as we can to get people out there and get them playing and being that best hour of their week.
All right. Okay, on that note, where do things like better scheduling, possibly keeping stats, having medical at fields, or crediting forfeits back to teams? What does that type of stuff sit on your priority list?
Yeah, so I believe we did have some. We were partnered with a paramedic training group this past season that kind of came out and was there to kind of help with injuries. We did have some partnerships in the past that we're trying to bring back. Right now, we have a fantastic partnership with Rehab to Perform. They're a big PT. They do some really different type of physical therapy to kind of get athletes back into the game. If you have any kind of pain, definitely check them out. I highly recommend them. But we're always trying to find partners that make sense for the league and that would help the league. So we're always, open to those invitations. But we're always trying to do scheduling. It's very difficult because the county focuses heavily on youth, and there's not a lot of priority or even consideration for the adults. A lot of people don't know that. It's kind of behind the scenes stuff. So we're always, on a weekly basis trying to fight for this field space just to kind of allow players to play from, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock, and not have to play past that 11 o'clock hour or just play 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock games. So we're constantly having those conversations. Scheduling software, we're always looking at different technologies, to make those schedules better. We have
On that on that note,
Yep,
why is five schedules like that when you play the same team every
twice.
yes.
Yep. So initially, when we first started fives, it was a smaller number of teams. So within a 6 hour or a 6 game allotment on multiple fields, we could play team A could play team B, and then team A could play team C. So you play two different opponents. We got to a point where we got so large that we couldn't allow that to happen. We couldn't schedule it within the 3 hours that we had without teams overlapping on the schedule. Plus, the old school way that we did it, if A played B and then A played C, there would be a 90-minute or a 2 hour gap in between those games just to make the schedule work with 18, 20, 22 5-man teams. And a lot of teams just didn't want to sit around for, 2 hours, especially in the fall season or early spring when it's cold out there, right? So we're still trying to revisit that and trying to figure out a way to make that work and maybe just cap it at a certain level, right? So that we can still play, one team. You can play two different opponents in one night. So it's a drawback of give and take. I mean, I kind of really enjoyed having the two different opponent approach,
Mhm. We
but it
definitely
got
did.
to a point where we got so many teams, and I'm sure the teams did as
Yeah.
well. But it got to a point where we just got so many teams and we got so big, we couldn't schedule it that way any longer.
Yep.
And a lot of the feedback was, "Hey, we love this now because we don't have to sit around for 2 hours. We can play our 8:30 or our 10:30, and not to play an 8 o'clock and a 10:30 game,
Makes sense.
right?" So
Right. Okay. Have you ever considered a player committee or captain council that gives structured feedback each season?
we have. I mean, we do that internally with our staff. I talk to a lot of the referees very often about things that they're seeing, things that they're hearing. Um, we've discussed it. I think we do a pretty good job within our staff of talking through, a lot of points and working through. And I always look at both sides of the coin. I look at, us as a league, and I look at myself as a player 25 years ago, right? All the time, everything I do, I look at both sides of the coin. So anything we do, I say, okay, Jeremy at 25 playing flag football, how would he feel about this? And there's sometimes, I say this sucks, but unfortunately, it's our only option. Or, you know what, this is great. Everybody will kind of love it, type thing. So we're not perfect by any means, like I said, but we're always trying to improve and always trying to get better.
Okay. Okay. These are more so combos I've had with a few players and their thoughts. So it's not quotes, but it's basically what they said.
Okay.
There's a thought that if you did some kind of playoff system for the bottom half of the league, it will cut down on forfeits and keep teams coming back because there's still something to play for. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah. So it's an interesting idea. We floated that as well. It's something that we have winter meetings every year, kind of like baseball does. We set aside 3 to 5 days, and all of our staff and marketing folks get together within days and talk through roles, and we talk through league formats and just all kind of different things. And this has been brought up this year. So if we did that, team fees would have to increase because we would have to obviously, fund more games. But I'm not opposed to it. I'm just not convinced that that would eliminate the forfeits like people say they would. I'm not convinced of that. But I'm not opposed to potentially working through it and seeing the outcome of it. I mean, we were just talking today that a lot of focus in sports is on those top tier teams, right? The playoff teams or that number one championship team. Calling it a 16 team league, there's one winner, but there's 15 other teams, right, that played in that league. And we always celebrate that number one team, but what do we do with those other 15? How do we still make them feel, appreciated? How do we get them to come back the next season? How do we get that 0-8 team that got blown up by 220 points? How do we get them to come back? And years ago it was an easy. They came back and they got better. They would practice. It's a different time now. So people, they try things once and they say, "Oh, not for me," and they move on. So we want to try to bring those people that love that sport, not just football, but all of our sports. If you have a bad season or your team's, just not great that one season, come back and we'll try to help as best that we can.
Okay, okay. All right. You ruined everything with those week two roster checks. Can you break down the reasoning behind that rule and why that matters from your side?
Week two roster checks.
I mean, because
So,
we're used to around week 6 or 7 having to have your roster and knowing that your roster has to be set by playoff time. So
yeah,
week 2 or 3, it might be a situation where everybody's not there. We got to call somebody up. But like I said, week 2 there was a roster check. So you had a lot of teams that we were asked out because we haven't had our whole team set yet. Like,
Yep.
dude,
Yeah. Okay.
like,
I see where you're going. I see where you're going. So here is our policy as it stands right now, today, November 18th. And that is roster checks are only performed at playoff time. Otherwise, if a referee feels that a team is bringing on extra players or players from another team, then they can perform those roster checks, right? And it's nothing against the teams themselves. This is really happening come week 6, week 7, week 8, where those last 3 games are critical to make playoffs. So they start bringing in some better players, maybe from the team before, from another league, wherever, to kind of beef up their roster to then make playoffs, right? And that's not really a thing in sports, right? I mean, you have your roster, you play with it all season, and it's pretty much locked. The NFL, with their system and such, is a little different. But for the most part, and I know the nil stuff in college, but high school football, you start with your team, you finish with your team. There's no moving, and we kind of shade towards high school football for most of our rule sets. So I know our system isn't perfect, and roster checks is not something that we want to do before games because it takes time. And then more we have to roster check, the more it cuts into game time. The more it cuts into game time, the less guys play. And that's not what we want to do. But we want to keep the games fair and we want to keep the integrity of the games. So where is that balance? I understand that guys are paying money to play in the league and they have 8 guys that are on a work trip and they need to bring in all these other guys, right? But those guys might be 3 or 4 former NFL guys. You know what I mean? And it's week 7, right? So they're not trying to do it on purpose. They're just trying to get 8 guys out there, but they just happen to be some of the best in the area, and they come in, whoop up on everybody, and then we get emails and calls and texts about, hey, they brought these illegal players into the roster and use them to make playoffs and all that stuff. So we're trying to figure out where that balance is. Right now, soccer, we roster check before every single regular season game and before every single playoff game because of the carding system. You brought up stats before, and I didn't get a chance to talk about that, but we would love to do stats. Stats are dependent, and we did do stats 6, 7 years ago, 6, 7, based on you need a jersey number to do stats. Not everybody wanted to buy and have a jersey number. So a statistician can't do stats without a jersey number, right? So then how do we mandate and how do we enforce that? And then everybody's gonna have a jersey number. And if you forget your jersey one week, you can't play. Now we got a whole nother, can of worms. So there's a lot of stuff, kind of behind the scenes that it's not that we don't want to do it, but how do we do it correctly and accurately? And I got a lot of ideas. I mean, a lot of crazy ideas. Technology hasn't caught up to a lot of what I want to do yet, and respectfully. So once it gets there, hopefully, we'll be there. But I would love to have stats. I mean, that was top of my list for years, but it takes, you got to pay that person to do the stats, right? There's a lot of, there's a lot of that stuff behind the scenes. But the roster check thing, it's not perfect. I won't, but we have basically given the flexibility for the referees that if they feel that a team is using players outside of the roster, they can roster check. Does that make sense?
Yeah, respect. Yeah, definitely, definitely. What are your thoughts on captains being able to remove players from their roster themselves?
So that's just a limit on our software right now. They just can't do it. So we have to get involved. I mean, trust me, the less we have to get involved on rosters, the better it is for us. I mean, you think we have 40,000 players a season. Imagine, a small percentage of them emailing in. 10% of that, still 4,000 people emailing in about the rosters, right? So the less we have to get involved, the better we are as a league that we can then focus our time on making the league better. So it's just a limit right now on our software. We're trying to improve that. So TBD.
Okay, okay. Again, this is just players' thoughts.
Yep.
Competitive games deserve the best environments, like night games at Westfield. What's your view on things like that and keeping all division games at one field and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we try to do that, and I've been doing a lot of the football schedules, along with one of our new staff, Taryn, who's been great. I try to put the competitive teams on those stadium fields as best we can. Sometimes those permits get pulled for various reasons, High school fields are, in high demand. Obviously, the school gets priority use, and they, pull those field permits whenever they need them, so to speak. So, and that happens sometimes on Sundays or tournaments. Youth tournaments take that. So, 100%. I always, in my mind, I would put every 8-man football game on a stadium field so that every 5 yards line, you get the hash marks, you get the nice field goals, that environment. If we had access to all of those stadium fields, I would absolutely do it. And then a lot of those fields sometimes don't start until 8 p.m., 9 p.m. at night, right? So there's those considerations as well. Would you rather play at 7 or 8, or would you rather play at 9 and 10, at night and then balance that schedule? A lot of guys would rather play somewhere else at an earlier time to get to bed early. We all got to wake up the next morning. We all got to work, right? No one's getting paid to play here. So there's all those variables and factors that we kind of take a look at. But I don't disagree. I believe, and I fully believe, that competitive should play, so to speak, on the better fields. But then it's, what about those casual and social teams? You know what I mean? So there's that balance, right? There's 5 competitive teams, and we got 15 casual and social teams. So it's a balance. That's all I can say.
All right, there's been a debate on how in the past champions received a discount on the following season. Why did that end? Is that true? And what's the chances of bringing something like that back?
Yeah, so we did that probably back in 2016. 17 was probably the last time that we did it. And that was, I believe, before we did championship shirts,
Hmm.
and then even champ rings. So basically, that money got put towards those amenities. We're going to talk again, winter meetings, about that kind of stuff. Once money gets involved, it seems the stakes get a little higher, guys. Temperament gets a little higher, right? So we're trying to keep this at a lower level, not a lower level, but not have money be a factor to cause more impact or more drama, so to speak, in a game, right? So there's multiple factors. I won't say it will never come back, but I don't foresee it coming back anytime soon. But always open for discussion.
Okay, okay. If you can give the flag players one honest message from the owner's seat, what would it be?
Man, this is a tough one for me. So we have a lot of super teams in our league now. 15 years ago, we didn't. And these super teams, in my mind, are killing the sport that they love,
Wow.
because they are just beating up on teams and not giving other teams a chance, because they want to prep for tournaments and do this stuff. Some of these teams I see in the league now, 16-man roster, that's, 16 of the best players potentially in the area. That could be 4 teams worth of competitive or other players, right? And I mean, no disrespect when I say that. They're probably all great friends and they all want to play together. And, there are leagues across the country where they have a disbandment type role where you win X number of championships. You have to break up your team. We haven't done that yet. We're talking about it, right? So I mean, that's not sports in my mind, right? If you're a dominant team like the Bulls, like the Yankees, and like all these teams, no one should tell you need to break up. But that happens naturally in now college with the nil stuff, and now in professional sports with their contracts of being so short. In rec ball, your 15 best friends may be some of the best players in the country in flag football, right? And you just want to play with them, but you're beating teams up by 50-0, 65-7, and so these teams are getting crushed. You're having a great time, but these other teams are getting crushed. And guess what? They're not signing back up, So how do we balance that, so to speak, right? How do we, so it's tough, and I get it. I played back in the day, and we were pretty good. We had some good players in our team, and I would never want to break up our team. So I don't know how we can better balance those elite teams and kind of shuffle them up into having more competitive and more elite teams. It's tough.
Okay. All right, last question. What's one change players can expect in the near future that'll make things run smoother or better organized?
I can't let the cat out of the bag about stuff, but just know that we are always working to get better. We know a lot of the frustration with like registration and player stuff, roster stuff, is just a technology um, uh, a lack in technology, so to speak. It's not available, or there's limitations, or what have you. We're potentially trying to work through those, looking at different things, looking at building our own systems, doing all this stuff that will make it easier on the team captain as well as the players. So I think really just know that we're always trying to get better, and we're never going to be perfect. If we get perfect, then I think we'll. I don't know. Maybe I'll retire. I doubt it. I'll probably do this till I die. But I just love it so much. But I mean, we're never going to be perfect, but we're trying to get there. And us getting there is starting with the league management, with the officials, and then down to the fields and the courts. So I can't stress it enough. I mean, we're always on a daily basis working to get better.
All right. Well, yeah, that's 4 for 10 with the commission. I
All right,
appreciate this, man. I appreciate your time, man.
absolutely. Thank you.
All right, man. Well, yeah, have you seen any of these, the 4 for 10s?
I've seen a couple. I don't see a ton of them. I'm not a big social media guy. Full disclosure. I know Nazarene was on several months ago.
What
Um,
sport do you enjoy shooting the most?
Oh gosh. You know, I do like flag football. I'm not gonna lie, that's one of my favorites. And dodgeball.
Okay.
I mean, that one's intense. I've only done it once or twice because I almost got knocked out because when you're in that room, balls are flying everywhere. So but that one was intense. Yeah, I'd say those sports. I mean, all of them kind of are fun. Like especially if the game's really good and the players are getting into it. So
Anything. I got you on here, so I'm trying to get two birds with one stone. I'm gonna ask you a little bit about states.
yep.
Change the background. Then we're gonna have a 4 for 10. That's cool with you?
Yeah.
All right. I know everything ain't etched in stone, so a lot of questions, what I mean, it might be the same answer. We don't know yet, but I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, so states is around the corner. The dates being the 13th and 14th of December. Do
Yes.
you have a location or locations yet?
Yeah. So we're gonna use